2014, and it is 5:34 p.m. Ms. Perkins, will you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Choma?
Here.
Commissioner Spray?
Present.
Commissioner Lukes? Commissioner Palacios?
Here.
We have a quorum. 3 commissioners are here out of 4.
Remember when you thought there were 6? 3 out of 6.
Yeah, I know. Never since then, it's like counting.
2 out of 4 or 5?
We haven't replaced Commissioner Prinz yet. So 4.
Okay.
Okay, so would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance since Jeff Northrup isn't here?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or amendments, or do you want to make a motion to approve?
I approve the agenda.
Okay, there's a motion. Oscar?
Sure, I second.
Okay, motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Citizens Forum. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak under the Citizens Forum tonight?
I would.
Oh, lovely. Okay, we'll go in order of, not alphabetical order. Would you come up, please? And no, that's fine. Not your, no, your Mapes. Go on up.
I'm just quick. I saw the murals were on the agenda for today, and I just wanted to let you know
Would you state your name for the record, please, sir?
David Mapes.
Thank you.
And I have David Anthony Fine Art on Kit Carson Road. And so I have a business in the historic district, and I just think it's a great idea. I'm a full supporter of it.
Great.
All I have to say.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again. Mr. Figueroa, would you like to approach and state your full name?
My name is Paul Carter Figueroa, and tonight I wanted to come to the Preservation Commission and remind you about the Taos County Historical Society's book, Taos, A Topical History. I'm sure all of the commissioners have a copy. If not, I have some with me in a receipt book, and I'll be glad to sell you a copy. $34.95. This is the first book on Taos history since 1934.
And the author is?
The author, it's a compendium. It's 26 authors in here.
Oh, I don't think I've seen this
I
one.
don't think you have either, let alone bought one.
I have the book. I have the book.
Thank you.
I was at the book
You
signing.
had the book signing, so my second part, and I've got 5 minutes, so I don't need to rush. The second part is that the Taos County Historical Society and Moby Dickens will be doing another book signing in the mural room of the Old County Courthouse on March 29th from 3 to 4:30.
I have 3 to 5 on the
3 to
calendar.
5, so you can buy a copy from any member of the Historical Society, or you can go there and buy copies. We'll have plenty of the authors for that book there to sign. So I encourage the commission to do so. And then, yes, I would second David Mapes' comments on murals in the historic overlay zone. This past summer, as a member of the Taos Arts Council, I went around the town and did an informal inventory of public art in the historic district. There are many murals. We need many more. That means we need to support public art in the town of Taos through appropriations in the town's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. You're here every night with something to say, Paul.
I couldn't miss it.
All right. So I'm gathering that you two are here for the mural discussion that's on the agenda, not public, not citizens forum. Okay, great. Thank you both, David and Paul. All right, matters from staff. Ms. Perkins?
Okay, the first item on the agenda is placement and standards for banners in the historic overlay zone. David Mapes came before you before and talked to you about the Kit Carson district. And then we had another request from Salon X, who is also asking about possibly putting up a sign to designate the kind of the uptown area of the historic district. And then in talking with David, we also learned that Ladue Street has their own little kind of banners going. They have these little, what do you call them? Like
Flags.
They're
flags sticking
flags.
out, different colors, yellow, whatever. And so there seems to be a need for coordinating how we designate each district and kind of marketing the historic district as one kind of unified unit, while at the same time drawing people to these different areas of the historic district and maybe putting together a map or whatever. Amy and I went to the last marketing meeting with Joni Griffin on the phone, and we were trying to solicit their input on it. And, you know, since there's a lot of graphic artists and expertise there as far as marketing, we wanted to find out their opinion before coming before you again. And Joni said if need be, she would help support the project using some of the visitor promotion funds. She also talked about how the town has its own marketing fund, which she feels should really be used to market this idea. You know, it's one thing to get the visitors here, but once you have them here, you want them to have a good experience here so that they'll be repeat visitors. So we're trying to look at all aspects of this. How can we have some standards for the banners or for signage, and how can we kind of pull the downtown together and market it to the visitors as well as to the town itself. So David's here to kind of follow up on this last presentation, and then we kind of wanted this to be a discussion item where we all kind of talk about it and kind of decide where to go from here. Thanks.
I want to get him back his book.
I know, I'm curious about the
Have you seen it?
commissioner's input. I haven't seen it yet, but I will see it.
Mine is still in saran wrap. I got it.
Because Martha, just so you know, I'm so happy with everything that you just said. And just so you know, there are more components to just not just banners, but ways to get people to more effectively know where Ladue is and Bent Street is and all of part of that, the downtown master plan, the $75,000 that got rescinded to the state, that included wayfinding and signage as a third of that plan. Another third was parking.
I wondered about that.
It did. So, and I've applied to get that money back. So not that we should wait on it, but those are professionals that know how to create pedestrian movement and wayfinding and signage. And if we can get that money back, we have already done 5 months of that study. We got started working on it ahead of time, assuming since we had the money already in the coffers at the town, it would happen. So it's probably only going to be another 5 months when we get started again. Then we'll be done. We could conceivably be done by the end of fall, which doesn't mean that we don't, this summer we want to do what we can. But I think that it's important to have people that have master's degrees or are trained in marketing and in pedestrian movement. And I think that since we're getting that, and it's a very valuable tool to have the whole thing branded kind of together, so people that we have a couple of people locally who are experts in transportation planning and pedestrian movement. David Hardy is one that we would want to talk to. Do you know him? He owns Common Thread on Bent Street. In the John Dunn shops, he has a master's in that. So we could probably put together a little group of people to talk about it and kind of brainstorm an overview of it, even for just this summer, just get started on it. I think it's so great because the Ladue banners were actually illegal. The pennants that they have are illegal, but nobody wanted to say anything because it was so cool that they did something. But it would be really nice to have a more standardized look. Each street could have its own personality, but it could be something that kind of went together, including the main banners on the main highway. So it's exciting that you care about it and that you brought it up. Maybe we could start with members of the community that are interested in that, even for coming together with something this summer. I know that we've also talked about doing a pedestrian map that's real easy to give out at the kiosk in the summer, so people can more easily find the street they're looking for. And some of that could be, like, for example, Kit Carson on the map could be, the street could be done in this color. And then Leduc wanted to be lavender, and then they could have some lavender flowers or lavender whatever. So you could also have it color-coded, so it would be really, if you're walking and you go, I'm looking for this color, and you see all those banners, you know where Kit Carson Street is, or road. So it's something we should maybe talk about. I don't know how far you want to go and how fast on it, but it's really a necessary thing, because we aren't a grid here. People all the time get lost. Tourists get lost all the time here. So I don't know where you want to go with it. My suggestion would be to talk about it as a community, but then also, if we get that plan money secured again, and it could start within the next month or two, then I think that's going to be the answer to, that will be great input to what you're talking about. And I don't know how fast you want to get going on this. I don't know, Oscar or Marika, what are your opinions on it? Yeah, yesterday? Do you guys, Oscar, I'm sure you have some thoughts about this? Visuals?
Isn't this old business? I mean, didn't we discuss this before?
Well, Martha just brought it up. Like, we're talking about it now.
We did talk about it as old business. David felt that he got a lot of input, but not a lot of, he didn't feel that he got approval. I said, well, I think that they basically gave you approval, but the fact that other people in town are asking to do a similar thing told me that there's a need for
Some
there to be
standardization.
some standards and some master planning here.
So,
And normally that would be like ACD or the Main Street.
Because once these banners go up, everybody's going to want them.
Exactly.
so I don't know the question. The question is,
Do you have some input on like, for example,
we gave input,
for him particularly, but we're talking about, like, let's say Bent Street sees his,
yes.
and they want to all of a sudden do something. Martha's talking about standardizing some sort of look that we think is appropriate for the historic district.
I see. Well, I thought that David was going to bring us, as it evolved, I mean, we were encouraging, I thought. And so there was some input, but you had stressed it where you were developing it, and we said, yeah. So I think it's in your court, and I think we're ready to approve, pretty much, unless it just it's not any good. I mean,
Oscar, read number 6A,
okay, placement.
because this is beyond Kit Carson Road.
I understand that, but what
Okay.
I'm saying is that why can't we lead by example? I mean, if we have one in the works, why can't it keep going? And then as it evolves, we learn what to do and what not to do. I mean, rather than just make restrictions on something, we don't, he's researching it, he's trying, and he's got it going. And before we tell other people what to do, let's look at his and say, they should be higher, they should be lower, they should be, I think, that would be my approach. But, I mean, we
Okay.
could put it in the works, but I don't know that I could make restrictions without any more than we did with David. I mean, this was a living, ongoing process, right?
Organic process. So maybe we should leave it like this for right now, is if another street wants to do that, which I'm sure they will, we can deal with it. But also, I'll bring it to the Arts and Culture District Board at their next meeting and see if, because they have designers on that board and graphic artists on that board, and see if they have some suggestions for the commission. And then I'll keep pushing on the downtown master plan to get started as quickly as possible. But I'll try and get some suggestions from the Art and Culture District Board on that for the other streets, if somebody wants to come up with something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, did I answer the question, or did I kind of dodge it?
You dodged it, dude.
No,
God, boy.
I don't want to move beyond.
I'd hate to be married to you. Answer the question. Anyway,
Yeah, I think we can, I don't know, chairperson.
yes. Yes, sir, what is your name?
My name is Moises Salcedo. I just moved from Phoenix, Arizona about 5 months ago. Long story short, left Phoenix to be a little bit more mellow, professional artist. Been also working with what you're talking about, and I've been on many organizations in Phoenix where we went into bad neighborhoods, and now I was one of the leaders in the community because I grew up in those neighborhoods and with making it to an arts district. So if you were to look up Roosevelt Point in Phoenix, I was behind that. Now it's thriving where we have over 50,000 people walking on First Fridays or First Thursdays. I also helped develop Grand Avenue, which is one of the main roads that came in from Vegas into Phoenix. It was a 4-lane. We helped turn it into a 2-lane. And also in that area, we started out with an idea that it was called Barricade Fridays, which was really dark and gloomy. There was all these artists, but nobody was coming over there because it's kind of dark. So what I started doing is Barricade Fridays, where we had a barricade out there with a blinking light. Gatherers got to paint and design their own barricades, so people started to pay attention to this district. Now the city funded close to $1.5 million to fund the street. We closed both lanes. We have the lanes painted now. We have planters out there. It's a thriving community now. With all of those kinds of stuff, I'm also a professional graphic designer. I've done marketing, done stuff all the way from Calvin Klein to Coca-Cola, and also with anything that you need help or any program that I can get involved in, I'm the guy for that. I have tons and tons of experience. I'm saying, why not use me while I'm here for that?
Thank you for your input. Thank you, that Barricade Friday sounds really neat,
Oh, it's
really
fun.
interesting. You know, when a project works, it's so exciting, isn't
Well,
it?
it brings it to the community, not just the artists, but it gets the
Yeah.
whole community involved.
Right. Paul, did you have a comment on this?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I just wanted to reinforce Martha's position from staff that you do need to look at this for standards, because you know they will ask.
Totally,
Will be
yep.
coming. And much though like the blue line appeared this past fall, painted on the sidewalks, community group came up with that idea. We had lots of participation, and we raised the money, and we did it. And this year we are going back and getting the feedback from merchants, from people who were within that blue line to see what we might do going forward to make it permanent, to make it better, to make sure it gets washed away. I really don't know. But I know this, it was a very effective wayfinding trail for pedestrian traffic through the historic district. And I know the map that was produced was one of the best maps ever produced for a visitor to walk around Taos, park their car somewhere, and walk. So there are 7 historic neighborhoods, according to the cultural plan. Ladue, La Loma, EDP Norte, EDP Sur, Guadalupe Plaza, Kid Carson, and of course, the Plaza. So you do have a big challenge ahead of you, but I do believe that prove this, move forward, and be ready to address standardization of banners, of everything, really, that you have on your agenda, murals, signs. Looks to me like you're taking on the big picture tonight.
I know, it totally does. The other thing, when you said challenge, I'm ready to challenge Bent to identify itself and Ladue to make some identification like you guys did, because I think it's so neat when a street does. And it's remarkable, these merchant streets have personalities. The Bent Street merchants are entirely different than the Ladue Street merchants. I don't know how it happens, but it's cool. And if they could identify themselves in a way that they felt represented themselves, but with some standardization. So I'll bring it to the ACD board right away, but I also want to kind of challenge the streets to start thinking about it, because it makes it so much more, what you're doing is great. It's really been a great start. A lot of people gave you a lot of kudos that you didn't hear for getting that project together, and also how many people that you talked to and their comments on that sheet. It was great. You did a really good job with it. I don't,
We had a good committee to work with. David Hardy was one of those original members of that committee.
yeah, he's brilliant, really. I have a question here because we have this in our packets, your updated version, we have it in our packets, but I'm not clearly seeing you on the agenda. Are we gonna address this issue again tonight?
Well, I expected to speak.
It's on the agenda.
Where is it?
He was going to
Would you read,
speak under this
second
item.
paragraph in
Under the
A?
second one? Under murals?
No.
Hey,
Yeah, with a presentation from David for the Kit Carson Historic District.
Is that, I'm not seeing it. What number is it?
It's matters from staff, number A, placement and standards for banners.
Oh, I
in
see it, I see it,
historic.
I see it. I get it, okay. I
And
didn't
see-
read far enough. Okay.
Yes, and staff talking to him,
Right.
you know, we're talking about the approval process. We don't even really have an approval process. We
Right.
don't have any standards. And
Right.
So this is like a real,
Right.
not a gray area at all. It's very colorful, but.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to bring it to the ACD board at our next meeting, and also I'm going to go talk to David Hardy about it and get his suggestions on it, because those are the person in the group that I think would have the best idea to make a recommendation for the commission, just as a start. I don't know where else to start.
Because when we talked about it in the marketing committee, we also talked about how different colors, we don't want to interfere with like traffic
Right.
signage and things like that. So it'd be great to have his input since he has professional expertise in this.
Maybe I'll invite him to come to the next meeting, Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and discuss it with us.
That'd be great.
Yeah, he's really amazing. Okay. And if anyone else has any ideas, throw them out to us, because that's great. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Thank you.
Can I speak first?
Yes, now you're up.
Um,
Identify yourself, please, again.
David Mays.
You can use the microphone if you want.
Do I need it?
We're not on
It's up
air,
here
so
that
I don't
they're
know.
On air, so,
We are on air?
no, it doesn't.
No, we
seem
aren't.
like-
So when I was here before, you all had some good.
now you're on there.
Now we
Get
are.
over there. Up
Yes,
on top.
please speak into the microphone, because now we are on
Step up
air.
and speak into the microphone, that'd be great.
Okay. When I was here before, you all had some good suggestions, and I liked bigger and a lot of the ideas. But we're real limited on where we can put those banners on Kit Carson Road, and we do have 11 street posts that are similar to the ones on the plaza. And so you have in your packets, it addressed hopefully everything that you guys suggested and what, my thoughts were about that. I did go forward with this with the idea that it could be something that other streets could adopt, with a banner design that they could maybe have a different type style up front and refer to their street differently. But with the realizing that we do need to approach it with some sort of consistency or guidelines, so it doesn't get all whack and look all like a big mess. And obviously that's been addressed well here. So, but if we were to go ahead and start, the cost would be rather minimal. It would just be printing some banners, 18 by 30, and then buying banner mounts that are like they have on the main road, supporting some of the Adventures Day Taos banners that are up there. They're strapped onto the poles, foam poles, light posts with adjustable hose clamps or metal straps, stainless steel straps. And so that's something that would be with the Public Works Department. But I think it could be done for, not, $2,000 or $3,000 rather than getting too carried away. And then Joni Griffin did offer to use some money for that, and that would be a source of funding to at least get it initially started. And I think that maybe it could be looked at as sort of a pilot project. And then we could learn a lot of things about it. Like I know French in Public Works, immediately has some concerns about the banners being like a sail that might put too much pressure on those little lamp posts. So he wants to look at that, and now we need Kit Carson Electric to be involved because they put those up. So there's still a lot of that kind of stuff to go on, and I don't know. I don't know if those lamp posts are in every neighborhood or not. But ideally, we would have consistent places to put those, we could make it really beautiful, but I think if we could use what we've got to work with, we can get it started. And one thing I was pretty surprised or happy about, it was the easiest sell of anything I've done in a long time. I just started walking up and down Kit Carson Road, and nobody questioned it, not even the design. Only 2 people started having little suggestions, which to me is sort of a miracle, because when you have committees trying to decide on ad designs and flyers, and it's very hard to do, because everyone's an expert and they all have their way of, and it can just take forever to make decisions. So I was pretty happy they all liked it. And I had started with, sort of a gradient pattern, but then on the marketing committee, which I attend, Anna Karina Armijo, who lives here in Taos, has a strong graphic design training background. And so she helped me with this. And then as did Emily Wild, gave her some of her suggestions and kind of reminded me that a lot of that is as much of a science as it is an aesthetic. I mean, we're looking at the banner with what you have in there, the full page picture of it. And it has a nice white border around it, but when it's actually hanging up, you have all kinds of other noise behind it, part of a building, part of a tree. And then, so there are certain rules, which I'm learning, but I haven't been trained, so I leave that part kind of to the experts. But I think, and then just everyone signed it that I asked. And that in itself is a testament to how desperate people are to get business.
Do the banners have white around them, or no?
No.
They don't?
They're just,
Okay,
full
good.
white.
I'm glad they don't.
yeah.
Did you by any chance ask Rena Rosequist? Did you get to her? She
And I
was
did get her
good with it?
signature too. I have an amended page with her name on it
Okay.
now, too. And there were about maybe 4 businesses that I couldn't, the Houses are out of town. Paul Castillo at Doña Luz was supportive, but both times I went, he was not able to come out of his castle. But he was in the middle of wiring, had to go pick up his kid one day and all that. So, and then there was, and then the Cabot Plaza Mall is the only other place I wasn't at, and I couldn't find an owner.
So Martha, both you and David have alluded to something that Joni Griffin had offered to do. What exactly did she offer to do?
Well, I asked her if there could be money, if there was money available that she would or spend on the project. She said yes. But although she did mention that the other banners that were put up came out of, I think, ACD or Main Street funds originally. And I think that's more appropriate for the overall program. But if she's willing to do it, to get us started on a little pilot on Kit Carson by this summer, I think we should take her up on it.
And Martha, what did she mention to you?
She didn't give us a dollar amount.
Because
I
Mike,
just guessed 2,000 or 3,000. if we
Yeah,
keep it
that's
in
kind
there.
of the impression I got too. but she
because
didn't actually
just
say.
like you're doing this, other streets are going to want to do this. Is she prepared to do that for every street that asks?
I don't think so. I think we had it on our agenda at the marketing committee for months and months and months, and it was sort of, I guess, a pet project I brought into there. And because her job really is to bring people to Taos. And
Right.
once they're here, that's everyone else's job, and that's why you don't see all of her advertising in Taos.
Right, that's why I wondered what she had offered to do, because other people will expect her to do the same thing for them.
And so that maybe we'd need to find another source of funding just for that, because if maybe that's not a precedent anyone wants to set.
Do you have any, are you all, the way that you presented it to your merchants is everybody would buy in a certain amount to have this project done, or?
Well, there was only, the McCarthy's offered it, but nobody else, is in a position to do that. I mean, it's a real struggle just to keep the electric from getting shut off. I mean, it's
know.
very, very bad.
I know.
And so we have maybe 2.5, 3 months out of the year where there's people.
Right.
And so we have a lot of work to do, everyone does, to get
Yeah.
Taos economy going back where it was,
So-
at least in the art world.
So to do a project like this, you figure for 2,000 or 3,000, you can do it for Kit Carson?
That's my guess. I could get a better figure by deciding who would be the best company to make the banners, but I've been online looking, and the banner supports, I'm not absolutely clear on cost, but I guess we only have 11 street lights, and so it'd be 22 banner supports, and maybe they're $30 a piece, that's $600, and I think the banners cost around $100 a piece to print, so I'm comfortable with that range, but I can get a much better number.
And they're two-sided, if I recall
Yep,
correctly. I'd love to see you get them done as soon as possible, wouldn't you guys? Beautiful.
Well, I'm just waiting for my moment here. I have plenty to say. Okay, I've been dialoguing for a while, so I do have plenty to say, if I may now.
Please.
Okay, thank you. I have looked through all of this, and I remember in good detail our discussion when you first laid this out. And I think that you've done a tremendous job. I think that you really took everything into account, that the comments that the commission made, just because we were having a dialogue. We weren't in any position or didn't assume that we were going to say yes, no, or any of that. It was a dialogue. And it seems to me that you had a look at everything that was said, and you've gone into detail. I can see where you suggest that the signs will go, what is the best way to approach it, what is the most cost-effective way to approach it, and best of all, that fire engine red banner is now been redesigned, and my personal, just from myself, I think it looks great. I think it addresses the problem, the issue that we brought up perfectly. So at this point, and it sounds as if you have funding or some sort of organized funding to get going, and I would just think, get going. And I don't know what else we can do for you at this meeting. It's not subject to approval or a motion or anything like this. I would say get going. If you look at the rest of the agenda for this meeting, what we're doing for the rest of the agenda is synchronizing murals, sign design standards, and so forth, which are all various aspects of the same thing. And so we'll be heading into all of that, but that's all in the same spirit. So that is what I have to say about it. Get going, and the best, most effective, cost-effective way that you can, absolutely. It needs to be done, and I applaud you for doing it.
Thank you.
Do you not think that for precedent setting that we should approve this in a more
You know,
formal
my
way?
understanding was that well, that is a hearty approval, but I don't know that we even are in any official position to approve it officially. That was one of the questions at the last meeting. We had a dialogue, but you almost in some ways didn't need our permission, is what I was sort of getting from staff according to a code at this time. But the simple fact that we're opened up that dialogue because we as a commission are on the threshold of reviewing the design standards, reviewing the sign code standards and embellishing them, reviewing whether murals will or not be allowed, and so forth and so on. It was all within that context. If the chair feels and staff feels that we need to make an official yes, that's fine by me. I just almost thought that we did not need to do that. We were just having a dialogue, and we could say, you have our blessing.
Oscar?
Yeah, in terms of these photographs, I see a street sign or a post on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't see one on 9. Where's post on 9?
That got run over by a car about 4 months ago.
Oh, so myself as a designer, I mean, what I would like to see, I'm having trouble visualizing how the sign would look on each post.
Well, they would.
I mean, graphically, and whether that's a sketch or a tracing or a montage or a Photoshop. No, okay, well that helps, but then I want to see it on the, I mean,
I have amended pages for the front page of your packets.
You got amended pages for these?
No, and the reason I did, because the last time I got on Photoshop and I made flags on all the banners, and it really couldn't tell from that picture, it caused more confusion and more concern than it helped.
Oh.
And so I left them off this time, and because those also are sort of in the public works realm. One thing, many of the street posts are on the actual curb, right to the edge of the street.
Right.
So that the banners cannot go out over the street.
Right.
So they barely can clear with the height of the street post to be within sign code to be over the head.
Right.
And so, and one of them might block a speed limit sign, so those would be things that Public Works will have to look at each location, I think, to make the decision.
Oh, okay, well,
And
yeah, well, for me, I don't have that one. I think maybe that was in our last meeting, you gave us a picture of that. But I just think it's a missing link. I mean, it's like,
I can send you something.
would you? Or, you know, I mean, I think it, or,
Sorry.
That looks great.
It says committee. I mean, we had it all fixed with the commission and my friends.
We forgive you.
So what's the story?
You've worked so hard, we forgive you. David, am I understanding that these will be the same height all the way down the street? They will be at the same level?
All the street posts are consistent.
Okay.
so where's a person here?
Well, see, this is why I kind of didn't do it, because a friend of mine helped me. She found a clip art picture of a street post just
Sure.
to make it pretty.
Sure.
But in all actuality, it's out of proportion because this needs to be 84 inches, and that's what it would be.
Okay.
And so.
These posts, okay.
Maybe
all
what
right.
helped us, I made you.
Can you see, this
took a
is what we're
picture
talking about?
of
You've
like
seen it?
one street post and how it would hang in the clearances.
Well, I just think it would sell if you showed me 11 pictures of these posts with the signs as proposed, because
I have
there's a
that.
missing link. I mean, you know,
But you have the
in
signs
ter-
going out
you
in the
know,
street, and so I.
in terms of if we're all okay with it, you'll do a good job, that's fine. But in terms of me looking at it and approving it, I can't see it. It's like, that's what drawings do, or photos do, or Or if you're ready to just go ahead and just start installing one or two and have the commission look at it or something,
Almost there.
that, you know,
Okay, I can email you a picture with what it looks like with flags on those for you.
on all of it, all 11 of them?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, good.
And then
So-
throw in the other one. I mean, do a montage of the one that's missing.
So Martha, on the agenda, it doesn't indicate that we need to actually do a formal vote. Do you just want us all to
That's my
bless him?
question.
Wait a second, you want us just all to say we all are in definite agreement with this project, and we all love that you brought it to us and listened to the suggestions, or do you want us to give him something more formal to go on?
I mainly wanted you to know about this project and what we're trying to do with it, and, you know, and then I also wanted to talk about the standards, maybe
Yes.
working with the Arts and Cultural District, or
Yep.
trying to, you know, broaden this, because I think once these banners go up, other people are going to want to do it. And then funding's also an issue. And the other thing is that we are taking this to our internal review committee, so that, and we will be walking it with the Public Works folks to make sure that the signs meet the town standards. So it's more just
Okay,
for your
then
blessing.
then the three of us think you're wonderful for doing this project.
Well, thank you.
And we all say hearty yeses, I think. But you are going to send Oscar the email, right? Okay.
Well, I mean, we're trying to figure out what state this is in and how much of a blessing he wants. I mean, I think we keep calling this a dialogue, and so is it then, what if I have comments about it, then what? I mean, or what? I mean, what are we going to do with them?
You're going to give them to David so he can incorporate them in his project, like just what we did last
Well,
month.
then,
when he was
okay,
here.
then put those things on there and come by my office, and I'll give you a half hour or so. We'll chat about it
Okay.
with the blessing of the people here, I guess.
Okay. And this obviously proves we need standards.
Well, but I mean, but isn't it on a one-to-one basis a little bit? I mean, so if the next street wants to do banners, I think we put them through the same process as this. I mean, as we're,
Right,
the
but when we-
standards are that it should be nice and it should work, but I mean, you know, as, they don't have lampposts necessarily on other parts of the
Right.
place.
Just one second, please. Right, but when we talked about murals, we talked about if someone wants to do a mural, they have to bring it to this commission to
Yes.
look at it. So the banners are sort of the same thing.
I think
It's
so.
the same deal. So we'll work that out to where it's something that they have to bring, and we should be able to do it in one meeting unless they're really,
Well, and then things like building codes and stuff happen by lawsuits. I mean, as things happen, people make laws about it. Like someone hits their head that's 7 foot tall or whatever, you know, I mean, you start making rules, or they blow down or whatever.
Right.
You make rules, I think we can make rules as we go along, and I don't think we have to be defensive about it. We can start it with him.
right? We're going to
Well,
get something more
Here's the
settled in
thing,
mind.
is this subject to a formal, I need to know.
No,
and
not
as
at
part
this
of the
point.
question.
Okay.
At
Not
this point, it is not, but it will be in the
And-
future.
Well, that's just it. So in my mind, whatever comes before us that is subject to a formal decision on something that has to do with code, that is in code, that will require further and further and more detail. In this case, my sense was always that this was a dialogue, and that's why I asked for guidance from staff. If that is beginning to change, and if we are now commenting on something that requires an overview, an approval process, or anything like this. If not, then it is within our choice to simply give a benediction and say yes and go forward. Is that correct? That's my question.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct, because he does have to meet standards as far
Right.
as the public works.
All right. But I'm sorry, your name's Moises. I don't remember your last name.
Yes, Moises Salcedo.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add
Yes,
while we're on this
just a comment
discussion?
I agree as well, just as far as the idea and the concept, but along with what Oscar was saying, it is something like he could be the beginning of the template for everything else.
Right.
This is stuff that I've been through as well. We go and everything was amazing, and we get there and like, well, what size are the brackets? How high, what's the, you know, and with all the red tape that varies from city to city, but I think that when you bring the concept, that could be a foundation or a template, like Oscar was saying, because I'm looking at it as well, and I was trying to look at how high or how low. But like you're saying, I think a template would be great for it, because then if somebody else wants to put one, it's
Sure.
here you go, here's the template for it. So I think that it's great, because I'm going to want to put one of those up. As well.
All right. Thank you for your comment. I'd like to move on if no one has any objection on the commission to 6B, the murals. Ready to go on that? Thank you, David, very much. Can't wait to see them up. All right. Martha?
Okay, so then the next one is talking about murals in the historic overlay zone. And I thought I would turn this over to our guest here who asked to talk about murals. And then when we go to the next item, signs in the historic district overlay, I actually suggested code changes that I kind of wanted to talk about as far as definitions. And one of those is the mural, and I actually showed that definition to Moses, and he wanted to broaden it up a little bit. I was looking at it as far as for the historic overlay zone, and he was thinking about it for the entire town. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's something to think about. Anyway,
So the only thing that this commission can have anything to do with is the overlay zone, not the entire
right,
town.
exactly.
I was just explaining that to him.
Yeah, step up there.
Please, and state your name really clearly, because we're on air now, and then they'll know who you are.
My name's Moises Salcedo. I'm a professional artist. Been working with communities, the community and different communities throughout the U.S. in enrichment and education, mural work, tourism, marketing, anything that deals with bringing more income, generating more income to the city or the town. I've been, from the city of Phoenix, I've been hired from the Greater Phoenix department. They've flown me as far as Chicago to promote Phoenix, to generate more funding. The next Super Bowl is going to be there, so I'm being hired to do a mural there for that. The city of Buckeye just got rezoned, and they're hiring me to go do a mural representing Buckeye as well. When I first moved to Taos, I came up here to visit a friend of mine that had my artwork up in his cantina, and he's telling me, man, you're selling your artwork like crazy, come visit. I've been busy for the past 3 years. I come up here and I fall in love with Taos the first 10 minutes. I've explained that story over and over. Literally that night that I was on the balcony, I called my wife and told her, pack everything up, we're moving to Taos. And here I am, but one of the big questions that I had is when I was coming into Taos is where's all the art on the walls? Where, if this is more artists per capita here than anywhere in the world, even Paris and France, or Italy, I was wondering where all the murals were. Because I've been in many cities, and the first thing I do is I go to the mural district, or I go to the arts district, and then I'm guided from there, which all of this ties in together because it's the signage, the community as well that gets involved in the arts. One of the ideas that I had was to generate the opening to Taos like a welcoming mural, rather than just a mural, a general mural of I'm painting some flowers and then I'm doing this and then it relates to Taos. What I wanted to start off with is the introduction to Taos, like welcome to Taos. Something that somebody can get off their car. They've been traveling from Albuquerque, driving through everywhere. When they get there, where are the open arms? I wanted to create something that was like what I'm known for doing is the intro to cities and other cities. I do a vintage style mural of postcard, like if it's welcome to Buckeye, so, or welcome to, I'm doing one for Santa Fe for a motel as well. So I have some samples to pass around. So
When
guys
you
can
say
see some.
vintage, what decade?
I'm talking about the 50s and 60s, but I'm known for doing what I do is called folk moderno, which is folk meets modern art.
I know what it is.
So
yeah.
you're bringing it into a modern era. I did this for the Renaissance Hotel as well, and which was everywhere. So I'll give you guys some samples of the work that I have.
Do you have a location?
Phoenix, Buckeye, Chicago.
No,
Like
no,
a
no, no, no,
location
no,
for the
no.
mural?
No location for the one in Taos that
We're still,
discussing.
that's what I want to know.
Is Judy gonna do
Yeah.
it?
No,
or,
but you have a shop underneath the cantina.
Thank
You what?
He has a shop under the El Camino Cantina.
Well, I mean, but, why don't?
Is that what you're talking about? Where he's
No, I'm not
operates?
talking about that. I'm
Okay.
talking about the physical location of the sign. Is it, would it go on the caravan wall? Is that the one?
There's two places I'd like to put it. One of them is where you go up the ramp with the rooftop parking,
Yes,
the south wall of Alhambra World,
yes,
which is huge.
yes.
That would be really nice.
I think
but
it's, yeah, like with what Judy's saying, we've spoken about that. It's-
Actually, 3 locations, because
Well, that's just
on
one.
the backside, there's a retaining wall where Tuesday morning is the parking lot.
Yeah, but that's, wait a minute, that's
Well,
not,
that's for people who, like maybe the top part, because I know the cars park on the bottom, but for people walking through there into the plaza. And the third one is on the wall, the wall where the El Camino Cantina is right now, where the traffic going up the hill will be able to see it.
And then I'll give you a mock-up of what we're talking about.
The first one, missed where the first one you're talking about would be.
You know where the rooftop parking is?
Yes,
Patrick's
yes, yes.
That south wall on that.
Okay, I know exactly what
It's a
you're
big
talking
wall.
about.
so,
And that, when I first came to Taos too, and every time I'm drive in to the gallery, that's the first thing is I'm at the light and I'm looking up there, and what a beautiful sight it would be, just like where all the galleries and everything starts. And then for marketing reasons, one of the things that I've done is I've added a visit.com or visit.org to the community. So what happens is you start doing marketing through media, through Twitter, through Facebook, through Instagram, and what happens is people are going to get off. They take a picture of themselves, or take a picture of me in front of this postcard and say, visit Taos.com. So then people are looking up, and Taos is doing its own promoting without even having to spend that other money on marketing and promoting and generating tourism, you know. But I'll give you a sample, and this is just a mock-up of some of the things that I've fallen in love with, and this is just personal to me what Taos is, which is the gorge, the pueblo, the arts, ski valley, ballooning, and chiles. Who wouldn't knows, you know.
So for clarification, are we talking about one mural to start with, Judy, and then we're talking about one right now tonight, and then the possibility of adding 2 more after the first one gets done? Is that the procedure? We're not talking about all 3 tonight?
That's my dream. I
Okay.
want it to be a reality.
Yeah.
I just want to know, so we're right now talking about the south wall and your upper parking garage. Is that right?
South wall of Alhambra World,
Right.
up to the top of the route.
I see.
So this is what I read over the paperwork is that, yeah, there's somewhere there will require no lettering and no, you know, no graphics, and I'm known for doing that as well, but this would be just one of those, the beginning of everything else where we have imagery of a sun or just a walkway area where it's full of just different art. Now, just to bring it, with other things that I'm doing, I always get the community involved, so this would be something where the school, I'm already working with Enos and some of the other schools where they're gonna have field trips to the galleries, to my gallery, and have workshops there. I'm flying out to Phoenix to do another one with the children in Chandler. So what I do is I get the children to come in and help fill in, do fill-ins, and then I go back in, polish it up, but it's kind of like paint by number. And I've been known to do public art where I get the community involved to help do the project as well. So this would be a starter, more of like, to start generating the tourism through the media. Not so no one's trying to like, how do we get people to know about Taos, or how do we just, so when people are here, when they're coming up the road, they're like, let's pull over, let's park. And once you get them to start getting to these locations of people taking pictures themselves in front of public murals, that activates business as well, because people are going to be happy around their surroundings. And this proves to work, because I've been doing this since I was 18, 17, when I started with the Phoenix Art Museum. And then I started working in bad neighborhoods, like they're like considered like you don't want to go in those neighborhoods. We've built murals, we built a community, start by coloring Grand Avenue. We have lime green roads now paved there. What we were talking about earlier with the blue line, I love that idea. I didn't know that was here because I'm new here. But just as the outsider, I still feel like an outsider because I'm still looking at all these things I would love to do in the community. And that's one thing that I'm already generating is that buzz to get people to come to the gallery when the parents are, because everybody does this. If you have a kid, you want to go look at art, what's happening? Everybody's with their kids trying to look at a painting. So it looks like the parents are like doing the lambada while trying to look at a painting. So I'm creating a center for when the parents want to look at the art, the kids go into that area and they have a coloring book or coloring pages that are mimicking the art, so they get to do their version. So the parents get to enjoy the art while the kids get to enjoy their time and understand art rather than having to look at a painting that they're not interested in. They're interested in fun and activity. So that's what I'm doing. And when I've already gotten approval to do a mural at Enos with some of the children, outreach children there, through some of the teachers. They're all for it. And so they're just waiting on me. The ball's in my court. But this is one of those things that when we start doing murals is we get the community involved rather than just this artist is doing this. You know, it's more of like if we can get the community involved and then everybody wants to participate on that. And anytime there is one, we can do a public announcement. Hey, El Moises will be doing this or this artist will be doing that. Come on down, bring the kids. Make it a day of art.
So right now, the code reads that murals are not allowed in the historic district. Is that true?
Yes, we have several versions, but the current code does
That's
not
what I
allow
wanna know, too.
murals. And so we actually talked earlier on, and I said that we were going to probably be making some code changes, text amendments to start allowing murals, because there seems to be a lot of interest in the community. He's not the only person that's come to me.
Right, and this
nor
whole
the only
commission,
property owners.
all 5 of us had said that we wanted to go that direction. Before I forget, Silver City's another little town. Have you been to Silver City?
No.
Martha, you might want to check, in terms of promoting this mural thing, they have an extensive mural tour that they do, and they've gotten kids involved in doing it. I can get you a contact name for that program. It's really great, and you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel on everything then, maybe. Because they're small, about the same size as we are, and their program has been amazingly successful.
And that's really why I'm here is I want to be used for that. This is for the community. That was my priority since I first got here because of the space that, meeting Judy and everything. Everything has been a blessing since I first got here for me. And why not use my skills, my talent to put more beauty and activate more punch to Taos. So when people get here, there is murals, a little map where people can go and check them out and just enjoy the rest of what Taos has to offer. This is an art world here. That's why I moved here, and this is why I'm saying, man, we need to punch some color wherever, even if we go by all the rules, what can I work with? That's all I need to know, is what can I work with and where can I work with it? That's pretty much it. And then I just need to know where all these locations are,
Right.
Well, may I?
Yes, please.
I'm frightened by the word plural of mural, just the same as I am of all the streets having free-for-all with banners and the rules. I mean, obviously, if the code is written as such that the murals aren't allowed, and we have been trying to change that, why can't you choose like a location of these locations that Judy is willing to donate, or well, now she's on the council, maybe she'll get some money from the town for you, but once again, I would like to see a representation, like a photo from approaching from McDonald's area, kind of coming this way, and that building, and then see what that kind of begins to look like.
Well, that's a mock-up right there that I provided of what it would look like, and with my style of work.
Oscar wants to see it in context.
I want to see it in content.
Yeah, I could do that.
Right, but first we have to, before we even go that direction, we need to make some changes to the code to even allow that to happen, right?
I just wanted to comment, because I've been talking with Moises for a few months about this already, and there's actually been a lot of interior murals, like at the old La Cocina there was. And
Right.
In fact, in the building where we want to put the mural, we had 3 beautiful murals that unfortunately got covered up with time. But since we're in the historical overlay zone, I was talking to Moises about doing something historical, like maybe the Camino Real or some kind of a Taos Valley with, Taos Pueblo and the Taos beginnings, just to make it historic in this area of town. So as far as what's going to be put up on a wall, possibility anyway, it's something that I'd really like the colors to be, what you guys would approve of, and a design that's historic that you guys would approve.
In the Taos Cultural Plan that got adopted by the council, that wall or right there is a mural showing entering the historic district. There's a mural drawn in there as something that the community should look to have. That's the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah, it's sad that a lot of the interior murals have all been covered up, though.
Yeah, well, and back to you, Oscar, and I know what you're saying is like the fear of plural, but like there could be a designated area for murals as well, but my whole concept is not to go over anything that's historic. I'm against that as well, because going back to the big city, they just bulldoze anything to build a parking lot, and you would lose an old church that was there, and it's very hard to preserve anything. But so I'm all I'm all with that. What I want to do is be able to do, while I'm here on this earth, with the skills that I have and the blessed hands that I have, is to let people know what Taos is about, and with through color and the art. Because I'm telling you, as the outsider that came into Taos, that was the first thing I was looking for. I was where are the murals at, and then the galleries. Everybody can walk and find the galleries, but with the proper signage, man, I'm all for that too. With the doing pole pockets and going. Once again, I worked for one of the biggest. I'm also a sign engineer, so I work for Summit West Signs, one of the biggest sign companies in Arizona. So I have all that, from the electrical to 3D, whatever it is that you would need. But going back to the murals, as long as the comfort zone is not stretched, and I'm allowed or told what I can and can't do, I'm willing to work with that. But
Sure.
you know, but that's, like I said, that's one of the ones that I would love to do as, like, for even if it's outside the town of Taos, that it's not disturbing any historic area, but it's more of a welcome where somebody can get off and say, hey, we're in Taos, let's take a picture, and you
Right.
know.
I just have a couple of thoughts that I wanted to put out. Wanted to make sure, you mentioned 3 locations possibly, is that right? Right. But one of those locations is on a wall of your own building, the Cantu building. So there are different circumstances here at play. If it is your own building and you wish to put a mural on it, that might be quite different and might then choosing arbitrarily some other spots that you feel are appropriate for a Welcome to Taos sign, because that would have to go through public comment. That would involve a lot of citizens in Taos, business owners, deciding, having a say in possibly how they feel about that particular look of a sign representing Welcome to Taos. And of course, as we all know, we're at least a tricultural community.
Yeah.
So that has a lot of dimension to it and might end up being more complex than one could imagine. So because I've said that, one of the simplest ways to perhaps take it as a first step is simply, as the owner of a building who wishes to put a mural on their building, such as you are discussing, and the next move might be, we need to handle this in code. That's number one, that murals are allowed and so forth. But then the other thing would be to create one for a specific spot, say Judy's building, and show this rendering to scale, whether you Photoshop it onto the building or not, but to scale, and then it will go through that process, and also public commentary and so forth. And I think that would all be at least the very rudimentary beginnings of what would need to be done if you want to proceed forward.
Right. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. It's charming. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. If no one minds, I'd like to move on to the text changes.
I'd like to
Yes.
make one more
I'm sorry, Paul.
comment, Then I'm going, because it's coming up on 7.
You have another meeting at 7, I'm sure, knowing you.
Right, it's with Helen.
Yeah. Dear wife.
It's called dinner.
Good luck with it.
Thanks. The inventory I did this summer, just again for the commissioners, I'm sure you know all of these. There's the large mural on Cabot Plaza Wall. There's
Right.
a mural at the Kit Carson Park Band Shell. There's a mural in front of Lenny Foster's store. There's a mural on Ladue Street, the famous horses. And then there's I think those were the ones that
Town Hall has murals.
not on the building.
Not, well, on the fence.
They have them outside
Yeah.
under a pavilion, yes, that's true. I guess those are murals.
They are called murals.
They're certainly about the history of Taos. So we have those murals, and going back, in my research, the one at Cabot Plaza was one that involved a lot of public comment when George Chacon got the okay to do that, there was a lot of newspaper coverage about community input. Did they want it? What? So it is one of those things that need
Absolutely.
an audience with the bigger community. That said, more specifically, Martha, is there code against sculpture, public sculpture in the historic district? Because, boy, there's a lot of that around the historic district. And
There's not.
if you're going to take on murals, you might be thinking about the sculpture as well, or maybe they're so different in medium that you don't have to worry about sculpture going up in front of the gorge called the Intersection by Mr. Seckler, or sculpture being sited in and around Taos. Let's open it all up. The barrel is full of monkeys. And then my final comment is I would like the commission in the historic district to look at the buildings, the facilities that the town owns. The town owns these certain buildings there, and perhaps that's another way to go in looking at murals. There is the private business, but then there's the public buildings you own. And in particular, if I walk one more time behind the TCA and see that trailer parked out there against the wall of the TCA auditorium and wonder who is going to tag it, if not paint it, I think it's also the ball can be in the court of the town looking at its facilities, historic district or otherwise, to say, you know, we're going to embrace murals, we're going to do something with these facades that are available, and let's start this effort for improving the facades of buildings.
And that one is that the one behind the TCA? Isn't that part of costumes or something, or equipment?
Yeah,
or in there?
it's basically a storage trailer for the sets, but
Yeah.
there it sits, a white blank canvas, waiting for someone,
Begging
the
for it.
Taos postcard, someone
Right.
to say, let's find the money. I know you'll have to work with the facilities director, Steve. Those are his buildings, so to speak.
Right.
But I believe he'd be an ally in seeing some murals taking shape on city buildings as well.
You know, I think there's something in the works
So,
back there.
thank you so much for
Thank you
this
very
time with
Thank
you.
you.
I really didn't decide until 5:20 walking the dog that, yes, I need to come to this meeting.
No,
Thank you,
Thank you
Paul.
very much.
Our next meeting is April 9th. We'll look forward to seeing you. April 9th, be here then.
Second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Judy, weren't you going to say something?
What's that?
Weren't you going to say something?
No, I just came with my son.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you. Good to
Okay.
see you. Bye.
Thank
Good to see you.
Thank you, David.
Bye, David. Okay, so Martha, let's move on to the code text changes regarding murals that you're suggesting. Bye,
Thank
good to
you.
meet you. Thank you for coming. Mhm.
All right,
Deep breath.
yes. So we had talked about signage earlier, and specifically the Taos Plaza and some of the signage that's there.
Back to 6B, discussing town code text changes to allow murals within the historic overlay zone.
Oh, okay. You
That's-
want to talk about specifically that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's in the sign section, and we have, in your packet, we have this colorful set, and then we have the less colorful black and white text.
Right.
And in here, there is definitions. Oh, one other thing, before we get to that. He was talking about the blue line, and I pulled pieces from the code, and one of the things that I noted that I did not know until I started getting ready for this meeting is that 12.28.040, which is the third paragraph down from this heading, Town of Taos Code pertaining to signage, is marking on streets or sidewalks is prohibited. And
He
You know,
did get
we can get permission from the town manager, but,
He did get it from
right,
Oscar.
right. So I don't know if the town manager wants to give the approval in the historic district, or if you want it to be the Historic Preservation Commission. I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, so, and I actually showed this to Moises about the definition for a mural. And there's, let me see. The funny thing about the sign code is they put the definitions at the very, very end. So it's actually on page 20.
Page 20.
Yeah. So it's the second to last page of the
Okay.
stapled part. And Amy and I talked about this, and because this was in the historic overlay zone, we felt that the mural needed to, the definition needed to be
Right.
specific to the historic district overlay zone, or the historic overlay zone. So we said that artwork applied to the wall of a building that covers all or substantially all of the wall depicts a scene or an event of natural, social, cultural, or historic significance that does not contain any brand name, product name, letters of the alphabet, spelling, or abbreviating the name of any product, company, profession, business, logo, trademark, trade name, or any other commercial message, unless it is a pre-existing, non-conforming mural said to be of historic significance. Because you'll see trademark names that are of historic significance that are on buildings, and we didn't want to, do away with that sort of thing. But then there's also this other thought, well, maybe we want to imitate some of the older type signage as murals. So I need your comments on this, because this is just something that we put together, but it was to obtain comment. Often it's easier to provide comments when we provide something than to
Right.
just leave it blank.
Definitely.
And then we made a couple other changes regarding murals going before the Historic Preservation Commission as far as the approval. We feel it's important that before a mural get painted, that it have Historic Preservation Commission approval.
Where are those changes?
Page 10. It's on page 10.
Page 20. Start with page 20 and then go to page 10. We were on page 20.
Well, actually, it's on page 11 at the very, very top.
Page 11?
Yes. Unless.
Perfect. Perfect.
So we basically said that a mural may be allowed on the wall of a building only after receiving a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission before the mural is painted. The problem's going to be that our certificate of appropriateness, that language, a lot of it's about the design standards within the historic overlay zone. So we need to kind of decide, number one, starting with our definition of what a mural is, and then what would make up the criteria for getting a certificate of appropriateness. So we have some work to do.
Number one, before you go any further, what you mentioned on 1228-040, I would definitely like that to be changed to the permission of the Historic Preservation Commission, because if something's going to be painted or graphically changed in the historic district, I think this commission should look at it. You never know what the town manager has design sense or
I'm
not.
sorry, what are you referring to here?
On 1228-040, formerly it was the permission of the town manager to paint
Okay.
on sidewalks or so on. I'd
Well,
like that changed.
I just got lost. Were you just, a moment ago, excuse me, Martha, were you referring to page 11, the top
Yes.
line there?
E.
And where are we at with that? Or is that something that you want us to look at or comment on, or say, yes, this is good, or?
Well, Cindy's right. I kind of bounced all over.
Because
I
now we
started
do
with
Started with
phase
something
one.
we didn't, no, she started with it, we didn't finish it. So I wanted to get that done, and then we're moving on to this other
I
thing.
got confused there. Okay.
Sorry.
So that's fine. So I just think that that's important, that comes before the commission if sidewalks and streets are going to be painted and so on, because you never know who the town manager's going to be, or if they have the same design sense that this group does.
I agree there.
And then we went to page 20, and we talked about the definition of a mural, which you guys came up with, which I personally think is really good. And then after that, we went to page 11, and which requires that a mural may be allowed with Historic Preservation Commission certificate of appropriateness.
Can I
And you
back-
have 2 E's there, by the way,
Okay.
just
well,
so
we'll
you know.
fix that.
Yeah.
You know, can I back up? Because the other thing that,
What are
if we go
backing
back
up
to page 1,
Back to page 1.
sorry.
Yeah, okay.
We also have 12.28.020, which talks about sign or banners across streets or sidewalks. And that one also, you can't do without permission of the town manager.
Are those permanent signs or temporary?
It doesn't really say.
So if they're temporary, I would think to town manager, that'd be okay, but if they're permanent, I think they should come in front of this commission.
That's what I was thinking, and so that gets back to our previous discussion on the banners.
Somehow, the only thing that I would like to see consistently inserted, because see, we've got Town of Taos code pertaining to signage. Well, there's that, which is, and then there's the historic overlay. So what I would like to see just consistently throughout is, I can see this language applying to all of Town of Taos, but what might make sense without the permission of the town manager, and always include or the Historical Preservation Commission if somehow we have to say if it lays within the overlay, so that
That's
we
what I was
have that
thinking.
language consistent throughout.
Right.
Not or.
I was actually thinking
And.
that we would say,
Well, and.
Under
yes.
section
Well, that's what I'm
12.
saying. I just want us to be
Right.
inserted.
it be
and-
within.
Because this is general. This is general for the town of
Right,
Taos, and we
right.
constantly need to say, except when it's in the historical overlay, it will need to be reviewed by the, right,
Yes, exactly.
So if we
Right.
can incorporate that throughout, that'd be great.
So does the commission, let's look at 1228.020, and Martha and I were both in total agreement that with banners or signs across streets or sidewalks, if it's a temporary banner for an event, the town manager's approval is fine, because you can't ask people to come in front of this thing and wait a month for that. But if it's a permanent banner or across a street or sidewalk or a sign, then it should be coming before this commission. Does everyone agree on that?
As long as it's within the historic
Right,
overlay.
right.
Which is what,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, I assume that we were going to take care of that right off the bat.
yeah.
Okay, and then for 1228.040, marking on streets or sidewalks prohibited, I think that also really could be the same. If it's a temporary thing for an event, the town manager should be able to make that decision, but if it's a permanent situation, it should come before this body. Oscar, do you and Marika agree with that?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Okay, on both of these items, 1228.20, 020, and 1228.040, if it's a temporary banner or sign or marking that has to do with advertising a specific event, like a banner across the street for Solar Fest, for example,
Right.
the town manager can make that decision without coming here. But if it's permanent signage, then it should come through this, before this commission.
Yeah, except, I have visions of, if it's in the historic overlay, and even if it's temporary, some neon yellow flapping
No, they
plastic
can't-
parachute thing.
The town manager can't do that. There's no neon or fluorescent or metallic allowed in the sign code, right?
Yeah, I think this is going to boil down to, when we really, really work out the sign code, including banners for the historical overlay. Then the town manager will have a guide, whether it's temporary or permanent, but especially for the temporary sign, then that will be there. My understanding right now is that our sign code is just not that specific, and we need to get that done.
Right.
Right, but what we're talking about now is for permanent signs or banners across streets or sidewalks or marking on streets or sidewalks that are permanent markings. I'm suggesting that those come before this commission, anything permanent. and that,
I understand what you're
Okay.
saying.
and then that the town manager would have the authority once the sign code, I thought in the sign code it talked about no fluorescent in the historic district and no metallic paint so that they didn't get shine back on cars and vehicles driving. I thought that that was already in there. Maybe that was in the work that we did that didn't get put through.
Well, so you're differentiating between temporary and permanent.
Yes, I am.
I understand.
Okay.
And I think you might have, I'm going to say this again. If I just would hate to see even what I might consider a tacky temporary sign for any reason at all in the historic district, even if it's temporary. And I don't know that we have those protections in place yet in the language. That's
Right.
why I brought it up.
Right.
So I would not want to put temporary or permanent at this point. We need to go.
Well, right now, it says the town manager can make decisions
I know.
without us.
So what we need to, I think we have it covered if we include, except for the historical overlay, then the commission needs to approve it as well.
Even
That's
for
when we're really
temporary?
covered.
Well,
You know,
what is-
well, this is not forever. I am anticipating that we are heading, according to our agenda, straight into finally resolving the sign code for the historic overlay. We do have a gap right now. So with that gap, we face the possibility of signs that are inappropriate even temporarily because we don't have that in place.
well,
And
right.
also, Martha, when we move forward into this, we need to make a definition for temporary, a time amount, or what temporary means, because that could be very arbitrary.
I'm curious, has it always been that the town manager approves temporary signs? Is that, how does it?
I don't know. That's
Why
not
isn't
right.
it the building department that approves?
Well, see,
Is it
there's,
Public Works, or is it what?
I think this is coming down to definitions. I think we actually have to define these temporary signs, banners, and whatnot a little better, because I think we're,
Right.
we have David coming before us talking about banners that go on the street and are permanent, which are attached to light posts or whatever. And then we have the traditional banner where a business wants to advertise that they're there, and it's temporary until they get their permanent sign. And then we have event banners, which are hanging over the streets. And
Right.
so, there's all different kinds of banners.
Right.
And that's sort of what I think Commissioner Choma is
A
getting
lot of
at.
variations.
And we do have temporary defined, but I'm not sure that we necessarily want it defined the same way.
What is the definition of temporary?
We say that temporary sign permits shall be valid for a maximum period of up to 60 days. And then, an applicant may be
time if it's
permitted no
likely.
more than 4 temporary sign permits per year, and only when there is a 30 calendar day lapse period between temporary sign permits. Well, a lot of our temporary sign permits, we issue them and we haven't had code enforcement. So I actually see signage being a huge issue throughout town, but we are limited just to the historic overlay zone. So that's part of the problem, is I was pulling in sections of the code that pertain to signage, and then we have a little teeny tiny section that actually talks about the historic overlay zone, where it does again talk about banners. I was trying to find that for you.
Good.
Also, what about these little things you took pictures of, these little A-frame jobbies? And then they say, sale today, so I guess that's temporary.
Yep. And those are on the sign code. We're hitting those next. Let's get through this mural thing.
Oh, mural, wait a
We're on
minute.
murals right now.
No,
We're
we're
kinda
not. We're
jumping
past
around.
murals. We're on banners.
Well,
Well, no, we're not on banners?
yes, we are. Yes, we are. But next on the agenda, we're talking about that packet you have in your hand.
Yeah,
It's
that
6C.
will
We're
be
still in
part of the
6B,
sign code
we're in
discussion.
6B, BA, C, B, D.
I don't, okay, whatever.
We're getting to it right next.
But
And Martha,
what
while
I'm
you're
wondering-
looking-
What I'm wondering about is it traditional that banners are approved by the town manager? Has that been the way it's been done before? That's who approves them? He takes a little fee from that, or?
He or she.
The person,
I actually think it's been the parks folks that have been approving the banners.
Because it goes by Kit Carson Park in front of
Yeah.
them?
The
That-
big one?
We're talking about that specific banner that hangs across the street there then.
Right now, but God knows there'll be more. If people start getting interested in the community, they'll be all over the place.
Right. But what I'm wondering is why it's the town manager's job.
Because they wanted some control over it, and that was the easiest person to pick.
It is unusual, I agree, and most of the language in code, from what I remember reading, said code administrator. And so a while back, I did say, well, who is the code administrator now? Because at times, it might have been the town manager, it might have been someone in P and Z. That might have, those roles may have changed over time or gone back and forth. But I agree. Town manager sounds, code administrator would have sounded,
It used to be the planning director was the code
You know, right.
administrator. And then, for political reasons, the town manager became
Well, but does the town manager have any staff or anything that has any aesthetic sense, or is that not an issue?
Not necessarily,
It's just verbiage.
right. It's just a person that was in charge, and I'm thinking it's not a good person to have in charge, because you have no idea. Just because you're a manager doesn't mean you have any design sense.
You said she? We have a she town
I
manager?
said he or she, it could be anyone.
It? Okay.
Also, this, Marika, where it says it covers all or substantially all, I think
All
we
of
should
the
put
wall.
it, we should do a percentage for what substantially all, over 50%.
you know, I don't even want to go there because I think it should be appropriate to the subject matter of that mural, the building that it's on, the scale. When you look at the thing on Cabot Plaza, it's just the entire building.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have that as a precedent, so I don't want to limit it ahead of time. Every mural needs to be custom, every mural needs to be approved, and it's all within context
Right, but aren't you
of the
gonna,
scale of the
but aren't you
building.
gonna have
of
people who
you know, the
argue
whole
the
deal.
word substantially? People are gonna argue that word, I think.
Okay. And
So,
what did you do on 20?
The definition she came up with, I think that leaves
We're
room
looking
for
at
argument.
page 20 right now, the mural, and that covers all or substantially all of the wall.
That leaves room
Well,
for
yeah,
argument.
I know, it means most of the wall. I'm fine with that word.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you find what you're looking for?
Yes, I
I don't
did.
know if we need to. How does Oscar feel about that?
No sé.
Oscar, page 20, the definition of mural.
I did read it at one point. Well,
Cindy was,
it was a good attempt, I thought. I mean, applied, there's no... Well, I think the key of this thing is subject to approval. I mean, that's why we're here.
Martha, my only suggestion, you can do whatever you want with it, is you have the word substantially all of the wall, and that word is not very defined in terms of percentage of the wall, and you'll get people that argue with what substantially is.
Cindy was, it's just a definition of a mural right there, and I think
might
Cindy
wanna
was
think about it.
thinking to insert a percentage.
Like over 50% or,
That defines what a mural is.
Yeah, I actually had this in another code in another community, and wow, that brought up a lot of debate.
right, totally,
Yeah.
totally. I'm trying to avoid debate.
That's exactly what I was trying to avoid, but then if you have a mural that's really, really small, then there's really no point in having it either. So we can actually just pull out substantially and just say most of the wall, and then it can be up to the commission to decide.
That's fine, whatever you want to do. I didn't want to walk you into a hornet's nest.
Do we want to charge a fee by square footage for the
And
permit?
I must say, though,
For the
with this
permit?
definition, with this definition of a mural, That would knock out what we saw earlier in the meeting as welcome to Taos. Those are letters of the alphabet.
Right.
Right.
And I got the feeling from Judy Cantu that she wasn't looking for that. What she was looking for was something of historical significance.
That's right.
Using the colors of the historic overlay
Yes.
zone.
I think the mural would look good with just the background as the mural, what he had cut out around the letters, instead of, I mean, the letters became windows of a montage. What about just the montage itself?
Right,
That
and we
just
talked
shows
about that.
balloons and
It just
red
depends if you think.
red or green chiles and
That
ordinals
does
and,
not contain any
you know.
brand name, product name, letters of the alphabet
and that would
spelling
be
or
okay.
abbreviating the name of any particular product.
yeah, because,
Okay, right.
because once she says,
Names of
welcome to
commercial
Taos, she's
Unless you
become
call
then,
Taos a trade
that's
name.
almost like
Unless
a public
it's
building or something,
non-conforming,
or it's a
said-
billboard.
okay, unless it is a pre-existing,
It's-
said to be of
So when does a
historical
mural become a
You
billboard?
could use the word Taos.
That's why we
Unless
have the
someone wants
letters
to say
in there.
Taos is a trade name.
Oh, no use of
Or it
letters.
gets branded.
Yeah, so then they want exemption to that, but, so did you talk with Judy about that?
I did not talk with Judy about that. I talked to Moses before we started this meeting tonight. And that's the only time that I talked to him, was right before this meeting. Just because I was introducing myself. He had come to the office right when I started working and said that he was interested in doing some of these murals that would have historic significance in the downtown. And so I had no idea that he was more interested in the welcome stuff.
What we just said about not, he couldn't use the letters of the alphabet, he could use the word Taos unless you call
You could.
Taos a trade name or a product. It just says you can't use letters of the alphabet for products, company, profession, business.
Right.
You could use the word Taos.
You could
Unless you
use it.
consider Taos a trademark. So he could use that,
Oh.
the way I read this.
So what, she and I were discussing a little bit when you guys had your conversation going.
Our sidebar.
Was the business of, when is a mural a mural, and when is it a billboard?
When is it, what? What was
That's
the
a
last
great
word?
question.
When is it a mural?
It's a
and when
great
is it
question.
a billboard? And I think that the stuff that was
I
shown
would
to
say
us
that he was
today
on the edge.
was on the
billboard.
edge of
I do too.
a billboard.
It
And
sounded like it wasn't what Judy really wanted either. She wanted
But
more
then,
scenes.
we want, I got upset, well, I don't know, I've met the gentleman a couple of times, I never get the feeling that we're talking about the same thing, but I'm afraid to say, yeah, these 4 places, you can start putting murals. I mean, the thing is, I would like to see just one. See
Right,
if it's
we're
any
not even
good. I
saying-
mean,
we're not-
I don't know, I mean, it's like, what is it, what's the impact, what does the public feel, how does it, it's.
That was just opening the discussion of murals. We aren't going
It
to
is a
decide, we
community
aren't
discussion.
deciding on that.
Yeah.
That's why I thought I would throw that heads up
Okay.
and say we would really need a lot of public input. We are trying, the whole thing. And whether even businesses in the area would feel that this particular styles is what they would wish Taos to be represented as. So there's a lot of complex issues, and so it's not just that easy. And that's why I wish I wanted to say
There's some
that.
beautiful murals and there's some questionable murals.
Okay, so here's the deal. On page 20, do you both like the description of mural that Martha and I guess, is it
I think
Amy,
it's a good start.
that you guys came up with?
I think it's a good start. I think it's,
That means
think
you
you
have
tackled it.
suggestions to change it, or you like it the way it is?
no, the definition is fine. It's just how do we handle it?
Okay, and then we all, I assume, like the thing on page 11 that says it may be allowed, blah, 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 with the certificate of
Which one is this
appropriateness.
Is there,
Page 11E, top of the page.
Okay, page 11. let me
We
go
all
back.
want it to
Let me
come before
reread
the
that.
commission.
is there a way to incorporate then, if I may, we're talking about the verbiage there?
Yes?
Is there any way to incorporate in that the
Yes, yes.
the caution of that it not become a billboard? I mean, is that not?
That would be under certificate of appropriateness when they bring
Are you
the,
reading
they
page?
bring the thing
Yes.
to you.
That's
Okay.
perfect. I
Okay.
like that. This way, it leaves it up to us in the end and review.
On page 11, yes.
On page 11,
Yes, yes, yes. So we like your definition, and we want to be able to have final say on the product.
Okay, so then we have to
Absolutely.
come up with the criteria that we're going to use for actually issuing the certificate of appropriateness, but that gives me enough clarification that we can
Right.
go ahead with some language for you guys to
Right.
review.
Perfect.
So Martha, don't you feel that like David's proposal has kind of an outline already for what we're trying to look at? I mean, we're allowing him to we're cheering him on to keep going, but aren't we making, isn't he setting parameters for his own self that we could have from his
Excuse me.
banners? You were asking for a code or the possibility of restrictions to banners?
I just wanted some standards. One of the things that I noted on there is he does have arts cultural district.
We said it needs to say part of the Arts and Culture District, because it implies that they're a separate Arts and Culture District, and they aren't. We talked to him about that last time.
Well, that's, okay, so, but it doesn't.
And so does Ladue. Ladue does the same thing. It says Ladue Arts and Cultural District. They aren't all separate arts and cultural districts. They're all part of the main, the only arts and cultural.
I agree there, and I noticed the same thing. I
Ladue
did.
had it, and so did this one. And we told him we wanted it to say part of or in the. I had that discussion with him here when he first came.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, he said that there were so many comments that night, he wasn't sure that he got them all.
Okay.
So-
Anybody's banner or sign that's within the technical arts and culture district has to either say in the arts and cultural district or part of the arts and cultural district. Because right now it looks like Ladue's its own district, Kit Carson is its own arts and culture district, and they aren't. And so it'll cause confusion.
I agree. Or else it seems to define that area as the
Right.
one and only.
But we didn't tell him that, huh?
We did, I told him that
Just
when he
now?
was, no, I told him that last time.
Yeah, but we need to, I'll follow up with him.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the part of what I was talking about as far as having standards.
Right.
And we're going to have to put together something that outlines, the heights, things like that, and going through a process with the Public Works Department and Kit Carson, if they're using lights. And staff has still got to work some of this out.
Well, he said to me he didn't really want it because it created more confusion on the sign, but it does, I said it could be tiny, but it has to have that. Ladue did the same
It
thing.
can
It
be a
was very
smaller
confusing.
part of, whatever is simpler. I can understand that his concern would be, oh, I need, too many letters on the banner, but
Or
we
it
have to
could
be
say-
careful that we just don't make it appear, it would be misrepresenting
Right.
the street as the arts and cultural
Right.
district.
It could say in the arts and culture district or within it. You could use any of those words or part of it. It doesn't have to all be the same, but it has to not indicate that that's what that is, that that's the district, because it's not, it's misleading, as Marika said.
So does he have, what I'm a little bit confused on is, where is he in this process of actually hanging the signs?
He doesn't have money yet, so he's not there. And he's,
But what if somebody gave him money? Then he's okay? You can put him
yes,
up now?
is that right?
You can
With
put him up now?
French's, with the banners, with the bracket approval with French and.
With the-
Well, right, we'd have to get the approval of the Public Works Department. I have talked to French about it some.
So he still has to get your approval,
The town's going to have some standards.
So, and thank you, you'll take care of that with him on
Right,
the, thank you
yes.
so much, because I
I don't
didn't
want
want
to
to.
approve something that, I mean, I want to just see what he's doing, but I think it's probably, I would copy everybody if he sends me any graphics. I mean, if he, we should all, I don't feel.
So what is his final, perhaps the thing would be, just for reference in files for now and the future, to always have that final graphic of what it is that's going to be produced, just for the file, so that it's there.
And so it doesn't get made differently than we all think it's going to get
My
made.
understanding from this is that they will look like this, 30 by 18 inches, and only a bar on top. I'm not seeing it fixed by a bar at the bottom, so it looks as if it would be free floating with the wind. That's what it appears to be.
Yeah, but I think he said he had to have, they were worried about the wind, and I think he was going to do a
Yes, and
bar
I
at the
read
wind.
that in the discussion, and that part also, so that's confusing. And I agree, I read that. Flapping in the wind creates, these banners tear more easily, and so forth and so on. He has that in his discussion. So that's the only thing to clarify. Well, your discussion says this, were you going to put a bar at the bottom?
He is gonna
Because
put a
your
bar at the
graphic,
bottom.
his graphic doesn't show it.
Right, he is going to put a
Yes.
bar on the bottom, but there is some concern that these poles are bolted. They're not buried, they're actually bolted to a stand that's on the sidewalk. And so the wind picks that up like a sail,
Right.
and next thing you know, you've got that
I
thing
understand.
rocking.
You might
Well,
have to
that's
have
how
some
I
holes in
understood
them.
it, until we
Right.
handed this out at
I
the
think we
meeting.
may need to, yes.
Okay, good.
They might have to be perforated,
Mm-hmm.
which would be fine. If they're small holes, you probably should do that.
So those are the things that we're still working out. the
Okay.
Details.
Yes.
So on the mural, on 6B, on the mural deal, do you feel like you have enough direction from us to move forward, or do you need more? 6B, the discussion about the text changes to allow murals.
Yeah, we can move forward, and we'll bring you a little bit more text next time.
Okay, good. And then I'm assuming you have the courage to take this all in front of the council once we're done?
Yes?
Okay, good. Yay, Martha and Amy.
Bravo, Martha, bravo. This is
Okay.
masterful.
6C, signs in the historic district overlay zone. Can you educate us on this?
It's
ma'am?
me, okay.
Okay.
6C. It's this package, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
Oh, yes.
we have an animal control officer, code enforcement person, and she went out and she took the time, she spent an afternoon, and she took pictures of all these examples of all the signage in the plaza and some other things on the plaza that we've been getting complaints about. So there's a few other things that don't involve signage, but are areas of contention, such as clothes racks out on the sidewalk. There is nothing in the code right now that prohibits clothes to be displayed on racks on the plaza.
Isn't there something that says you can have 7 items or less in the code displayed on your sidewalk?
Well, we couldn't find it. We were
Well,
talking,
there used to be.
okay, we are talking about maybe having a few sample items, but not having racks. I told her to go and take pictures, and if they had like flashing open signs, to please tell the business owner that they couldn't be flashing. At this point, we were going to go ahead and not enforce no neon signs, because just about every store has the neon signs. The other thing that she went back and did after she took these photos was that she asked each business owner on the plaza to please remove their A-frame signs, because they are not allowed on the plaza.
Just on the plaza.
Just on the plaza. And that's outlined on page 10, the restrictions that apply to the, on the historic overlay zone. And G, A-frame signs are prohibited within the Taos Plaza. That was passed by ordinance 13-02, 2013. That is a very new ordinance. And I don't know how it read prior to that. I guess I need to research that.
They were fine, and they were, I know because I worked with Matt Foster on this. It also allowed the big plastic puffy-looking ones from Sam's Club, like you see outside Stella's. And then when they changed this ordinance, I was told that businesses were going to be given 6 months to get rid of their A-frame signs. That's what Matt had said when he had presented this to the...
Okay, so she took out the A-frame, she talked to the property owners for the A-frame signs. What she found was that there are some signs that are not A-frames, but they're like plastic, and they have a base to them, and then they have a post, and then they have their description, which are sitting on sidewalks. She wasn't sure that the commission,
Well,
how the,
Is that the one that says the pond, old pond? Is that the one?
So, and we're talking about on Taos Plaza right now, correct?
As opposed to the-
correct, because
as opposed to the alleys?
Right, because
Yeah, as opposed to the
Commissioner
alleys.
Choma had talked about the plaza specifically because we don't have any criteria for materials of signs. We don't have anything that really discusses the color. This is an open area. So to start the discussion, I thought, wow, she went and did all this work. Why don't we provide this to you so that you can actually see,
Well,
just by flipping through, kind of what's there?
That's good. I like it.
The main reason for for it to say on Taos Plaza is because the sidewalks on Taos Plaza are so narrow.
Right.
I wish it were off Taos Plaza, because on page 2, the bottom 2 pictures are the bane of my existence, because they're my neighbor, and they have all this crap outside every single day. But there's a huge wide walkway there, which makes it different than page 1, or page, where's the other one with the, oh, no, above it? This clothing rack above on the right.
Right.
That actually stops, it impedes progress walking on that sidewalk, because that sidewalk's so narrow. So I think that the reason that they had these specific to the plaza was because the sidewalks are too narrow to almost walk on without signage on them. And when you add clothes racks and you add sandwich boards and so on, you see people trying to walk around them. And the plaza is a very separate issue than than like in front of Stella's
well,
restaurant or
maybe
something.
for traffic, but in general, racks out there on the sidewalk,
They're
tchotchkes,
terrible.
this cheapens the look of the plaza. And when we started work on the sign code, and especially within the historic district, especially in the plaza, one of the things that I think the entire commission, when there were 5 commissioners sitting here, truly all felt that these open signs, the open neon signs, all of that needed to go.
Any of them that are
needed to go.
mass-produced, they aren't custom signs. They're those-
Not custom
Right.
signs, the open signs.
Right.
There's a difference. You can see the difference between a custom sign. The only one that I'm seeing is the Charles Collins Gallery, and that is his signature in neon. How different is that from an open sign?
Right. Well, also the ice cream cone is
Yes, and then the
cool.
cappuccino
And the
La
cappuccino
Fonda.
one, those are cool looking. There's
Now, the
nothing wrong with
Minnetonka
those.
sign is different. That is in fact the brand typeface of Minnetonka. And so I don't see that as being appropriate. But
Right.
something that again is custom,
Right.
vintage, shows artisanship, originality, yes, I think that can be considered, but again, only if it's brought before the
Right.
Preservation Commission and receives a certificate of appropriateness. I think all these neon signs need to go.
Unless they get approval by us.
The
I think
open
so, too.
signs, the open signs. And so if we say, well, we're not going to do anything now because there are so many of them, I imagine that just sets the stage for there to be more.
Right, we agree. She's going to walk around and talk to each business and, build a relationship before she starts talking to them about the open sign. There was a lot more concern about those A-frame signs. But part of it is that we also need to work on the code, because the code currently does not talk about clothes racks being out on the plaza. It doesn't
Right.
talk about these other signs. I did, on page 10, talk about, there's another suggested code change for the neon tubing signs
Where is
as being
this?
allowed with a certificate of appropriateness from the commission.
Right. Well, I understand
that's-
why these are here. That's because the sign code has been vague. But we can rewrite this so that once that's in place, then we can say, these are not allowed. The code has been changed. Can we not do that?
Yes.
And
Well,
then clean
and
it
she
up.
doesn't have to take it on herself to make relationships. She can say, the sign code's changed, the Historic Preservation Commission changed it, we'll take the heat, doesn't matter. Because this issue of these prefabbed open signs that you buy at Sam's Club and all over, the neon ones, they've been on for 2 years. That was part of the work that we did before that got lost. since then, they probably doubled in how many there are.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody has one.
Yeah, well, everybody should, no one should have
They-
one.
So we
they
need
only
to, we
proliferate.
need to treat everybody equally
Yeah,
and tell
no
them
one
all
should
at
have one.
once, no
That's right.
open signs.
Right.
She was just
And
trying,
no closed racks. Does anyone have any problem with saying no
Not
closed
at
racks
all.
on Taos Plaza?
yeah,
None?
the problem is that is not in the code.
Well,
Our
can we
other
put
is-
it in the code?
Yes,
We would
can
like
put
to
it in
write
the
it
code.
into the code as soon as possible.
Right. And these other ones with certificate of appropriateness, like the cappuccino one on the ice cream cone, I think
Yeah.
those are
We can
charming.
make
It's totally different.
exemptions for
Those clothing racks have got to go. They're horrible.
Exactly. Custom, vintage, evocative of a different time, all of that, that'll be fine, and with a certificate of appropriateness if they're custom.
What was the problem with the cart? She has tons, that's on a plaza, McCarthy Plaza.
I think
This
that's
cart is
yeah.
darling.
I think that the cart is an excellent example.
And it's on McCarthy Plaza, it's not on
Of something
Taos
that
Plaza.
can and is encouraged because
It's
it
charming.
is of a different, an older time, it's vintage, it's charming, it speaks of Taos charm.
You see what we're talking about?
Yes, I do.
That's not on Taos Plaza, that's McCarthy Plaza.
McCarthy.
Right, and she's not planning on doing code enforcement on some of this. She just wanted to
Show it.
give you
Yeah.
the feel of what you
the overall,
see.
what's on the plaza.
Right.
Excellent. And that is an excellent photograph of something that we would encourage, that is charming, that is an old cart. It's wonderful.
And I also, while we're on this subject, I thought we had outlawed, with the work that Matt Foster did, any of these sandwich signs, like the one that says "At Home in Taos Sale Today," these prefab sandwich signs, the white puppy plastic things.
Right.
We had said, Matt rewrote the code to say a sandwich sign is appropriate if it is custom-made and small and not on Taos Plaza where you have a sidewalk width problem. Custom-made signs were entirely different in the work that he did. We were
But
going to
not
outlaw all
prefab.
these prefab things. Ugh, terrible.
And then one more thing, what I don't see is the sign that I took photographs of that is on the plaza, above the building, on the corner, driving into the plaza, across from US Bank. Is that sign still there?
Yes, it still is. You didn't even see it. So that tells you
Well,
how effective it
You
is.
know, but what that does for me is to include something in the code that speaks of the materials used for signage. And if we have that in the code, that sign could not exist on the plaza. We have excellent guidelines for design standards, materials of buildings, the materials of the windows, the look, and the signs need to conform to a similar design standard. If we can do that, then we have consistency in the historical overlay. And that would be hand-painted, that would be hand-carved, it would be wood signs, whether they're painted or carved, and then exceptions made for true artisan works of art, whether they are neon, whether they are, and that must be approved because with a certificate of appropriateness on a custom basis. Otherwise, mylar and plastic and you name it, should not be considered appropriate for the plaza signage, as it is not evocative and is not befitting the materials and the design standards of the architecture and the buildings on the plaza.
I agree, but part of our problem is going to be that when we adopt a new sign code, then we have to grandfather in the old signs. So we need to think about, like with the Arts and Cultural District or some other way where we can encourage the signage to be replaced with something that meets like a master signage plan for the plaza. And maybe we can give grants, or maybe we can actually help them with giving them some sort of incentive to create their own signage and endorse it by, I don't know how we're going to replace the signs that are there unless we give some sort of enticement to the business owners.
You mean pay them to remove them? Free
I don't know
dinner?
that we're replacing it. I think our biggest problem is that we're facing as a commission is that sign code is vague. It doesn't cover these things.
Doesn't
Right,
it say
right.
no neon signs? And all these are neon signs, these open
It says no
signs.
neon signs, and we can work on that. But what Marika and I have noticed is that there's all types of materials. When I first got here, I had a business owner ask me to approve a sign, and I said, well, doesn't it have to be certain materials? And I started looking in the code, and he goes, no, come on, Martha, let's go over to the plaza, take a look. And I took a look, and it was like,
Yeah.
any material goes.
Martha, this Taos Mountain Outfitters, how did they ever get to have so many signs up? That's why the plaza looks so cluttered. They've got Patagonia, TMO, new arrivals this weekend, Best of Taos.
Oh, it's just trashy.
It's part of the reason the plaza looks so bad. I really am thank you for having all these pictures taken.
No, they're
to put in
excellent
front of us.
examples. They
That's just
really
part
are.
of the reason it looks like trash down there.
Right, and so we'll start working on it. 'Cause
For
you're right,
example,
there's no neon signs allowed, and then there's this maximum number of signs. I've actually done some code enforcement on the plaza myself. And then we've even had where there's been paper and people have written signs. I mean, we have the whole gamut.
Right.
Yes, we do.
And so we have started doing some code enforcement, but she really has only been here a month, and she's just coming up to speed on the code. She's doing a lot of animal control work, and so we haven't hit this.
Your code enforcers also doing animal control?
Yes. So, anyway, so we have code changes that we need to do with the understanding that some of this is going to end up being grandfathered in, some of the signage. We'll get the neon signs out unless they're custom vintage type signs. And then we will work on the code. I would like to have a list from you as far as what kind of materials would you like? Wood, just the type of materials that you think are appropriate.
Wood, hand-painted or carved,
Not plastic, metal.
metal, corrugated tin, as, does your sign not incorporate corrugated tin?
Yes, it is.
Materials that are in fact already in use in the buildings of the historic district.
Okay.
If we can follow those material guidelines, then we have a consistency between the buildings and the signage.
How,
But not plastic, not plexiglass, none of this stuff.
And no vinyl?
I'm sorry?
No vinyl.
vinyl for temporary, like a sale kind of a thing? No?
Yeah, what we really want to do is eliminate junk and trash.
Right, not a permanent vinyl sign like the Village Shop did without a permit, but like if you're having a special event one weekend type of thing, you don't want to make a permanent sign for that. Pretend we're talking about clothing racks on Taos Plaza, or any of these things. How long do you think it would take before we could say that those are not permitted and can we get them out before summer?
Yes, if you want to work on it.
Nice. Nice. Because, the plaza, you hear it all the time, this is just junky. It's,
And of course, we're coming into, this year, we're coming into the warmer weather, and then again, just lots of people visiting, and wouldn't it be nice if we just cleaned up that sign code? It will create a different look for the plaza. It will.
and if you need the Arts and Culture District to weigh in to help you with some sort of specific standards for Taos Plaza, we can do that, if that's helpful to you for the council, to have that backup.
It'd be great.
We could do it fast. We have a committee that deals with that, signage and public art.
Okay, great.
But, if we really pay attention just to the materials, that will be, and have them consistent with the buildings that we are maintaining, preserving, and protecting, that might be a good basic guideline. It may not necessarily need to be that difficult.
Okay, so for the next meeting, we need to have the sign code pretty much put together so that we can take it to planning and zoning and start the process of doing a text amendment, which is what a code change is called. We need to legally notice that meeting in front of the planning and zoning, and then if they approve it, then we take it to the council for approval. So I'm thinking right now it's March, so that it would be April, then we take it to PNC in May, and then hopefully we'll get it to the council before June. We may want to have a special workshop or something, or,
All right.
I mean, I don't know how else to do this.
No, I think we should, because
and
if
move
it's
it.
that late, it'll be under Memorial Day, and we will not get it cleaned up before.
No.
Also, you had a question earlier about when we're making these written changes to like the sign code and so forth. I think the things that are not permanent at all, like the tripod signs and so forth, I don't see where they get grandfathered. I mean, if you say no more of those on the plaza,
Yeah.
I mean, they may have a little lead time to get used to it, but I mean, grandfather it in that they can have junk on the plaza, on
I
the
did
public
not mean,
walks?
I did not mean like temporary signage or A-frame signage. I'm
Okay.
talking about the business
Okay.
name sign.
But things that go, oh, okay, so I'm trying to figure out a way, the things that are not in compliance, how you treat that. I guess there's nothing you can do about the ones that are big and just got put there on their own.
That's exactly what I was getting to.
Okay, I think you know how we feel about all this
Right.
stuff, don't you?
Yes.
We're raising the bar here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your work. Let's go on.
Thank you. Please let us know what more we can do as
Yeah,
this
and if you want to have a
evolves.
special meeting to move it up faster, just let us know, because I think all of us, we've worked on this for 2 or 3 years,
We did.
counting the stuff we did with.
So and this is what we expressed at that time, and we're happy to just,
So let's
Help
do.
get it through as soon
Let's
as
do
possible.
6D, and then we might be out of here.
We might not.
I'm really so ready.
It matters for the Historic
all are.
Commission.
I love this group, but I'm ready now.
no.
So
Always
6D,
defer things. I mean,
do you want to do 6D now? Are you too tired? Do you want to, when
we
we
can
have,
decide to.
We can,
is it short,
no. I mean, this is more,
text?
right, this is more text. What we provided is actually what's in the code now with the changes. And then we had talked about different architectural styles and how come they didn't make it into the code. So Amy talked to Feather and Gill Architects, and they sent her a whole bunch of things. And one of the things that stood out to me is that there was this contemporary Pueblo style that is not in the code. They took out the Taos style, the old Santa Fe style, the old Taos style was taken out.
Right.
But nothing actually replaced that in the
That's
current code.
correct. Yes,
And so
yes.
there's a separate sheet on this, and then we have, what's the last packet?
The last packet is the one, it's kind of a version in between what was there, what's now. It's kind of a middle version with some of the red lines.
We're thinking that this version here may have been what was agreed on by the commission
This looks familiar.
before it got changed again and was codified into the actual code. We think this is what it was, from what Feather and Gill
This
sent
looks
us.
very familiar to me. I think,
Okay.
I
What, this
think
contemporary Pueblo style?
No, this, what we're talking about, this.
And then after that, the
I think
section
this is the
4
work that we
point,
did when we redlined
Let me see,
everything.
Intent and purpose, this page, let me see.
yeah,
make sure.
section 4-20.
Uh-huh.
This looks, I think you found it. By George, you found it.
She did.
You found it.
It's
This looks
fantastic.
exactly.
No, this is
like This
fabulous.
is what we did. Yay.
But
Thank you.
again, do we have in the Taos Valley architecture, classical Pueblo period, so forth, and what, do we have contemporary Pueblo style included or not? In what we just said, this is it, this is it. Is it in there? It is not.
That's what I found. So
Well, when we had a certain application come before us, that's what I said at that time. It is not.
Oh, yeah, that certain application.
Do we have to put in the code the things that are not acceptable?
Not if we put what is, do we?
Well, I don't know.
Because then you assume what isn't in the code isn't.
Okay.
You mean
Well-
that
This got
modern
put in
word?
here by this commission's decision at that time. And it was specific to what architectural styles were to be allowed.
So what does everyone think about the modern Pueblo style or the Taos style? Contemporary Pueblo style.
Now, I think that if we wanted to open up that subject as far as placing that in there, I think we can, if, as the commission wants to do that, fine, but right now, we don't have an,
Oscar, what do
it's
you
not
think
in the
about?
code.
Well, part of what was interesting, this gentleman talked earlier about there were 7 districts, I think he said 7.
He got them wrong, but there are 7.
Well, that's a whole, yeah. I mean, but he did list 7. And part of historic is to be in harmony with what exists. And right now, there's not a contemporary architecture
No,
portion of the town. I mean,
no. there
unless
isn't.
you're counting some of the civic buildings like, well, I don't know, the theater, the Taos Theater has kind of a modern style. The new stuff at the Harwood is going kind of modern style. The
Taos Theater?
the museum, the Harwood Museum
Yes.
has some new additions, and they're starting to come around to be kind of modern or boxy.
From the exterior, are they looking modern?
I think so. This building,
They,
the
because
swimming
it's-
pool and stuff starts getting real, it's not roly-poly. I mean, it's not soft.
Right.
It's very,
Hard.
look at these lines in here, they go outside. So, within certain areas, I mean, it kind of, like, what are we gonna do, like, with the school the middle school got put in? Enos Garcia
I
got,
think,
that building got put in, and that's kind of modern, and it's
In
ugly.
fact, we-
Lost its historic
In
designation.
fact, we discussed that as being exempt because it
Okay,
was
well.
an institutional building.
Right,
those
but
are some of
it lost its historic designation because of the way they did
There
it.
you go.
Right, but I want to figure out a way in our laws in this town. I want to figure out a way to have more than a courtesy review of government buildings, federal, state, county. I want to be able to have a say of,
You do
what
except for
goes-
schools.
or except for anything. I don't want there to be an exception. I think other towns have gone and figured out a way that anything that gets put in their historic area, they get to look at, and they get to comment with, not the day before they're going to dig the footings, but within a reasonable amount of time to have our input. I don't know, what would that take? An act of Congress? We have to go through the state, or what do we have to do to not have things happen like at Enos Garcia?
Yeah, that's part of the problem, is that the building permits are issued by the Construction Industries Division with the state of New
CID.
Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, the problem is that they don't look at the local zoning.
It just seems so oxymoron. I mean, it's like you're doing something in a zone, putting something in an area, and you don't have to abide by that area. It's like,
I'm wondering if we couldn't work with the state Historic Preservation Office and see whether or not we can't figure out a way to have CID do those checks.
we're not trying to design their buildings for them, but we're trying to like
Right,
Well,
accommodate them.
Can you make that call?
yes.
You know
How
Shally
do
and
we do
Harvey
that is-
at the State Historic Preservation?
I know one way,
They're
but
really
we can't do
nice.
that. And
That'd
that's
be
to
great
become,
if you'd make that call.
home rule.
Martha's going to call Shally and Harvey at the state, if Shally's still there, she was going to quit, but the State Historic Preservation people, that's a really good idea, and she's willing to do it.
Well, I was not on the commission when, for instance, the addition was put on to, is it the middle school, heading up La Loma? I mean, it's a marvelous building, but you know, it is on the uphill, the scale, the height, it's at the top of the hill. It's an institutional building. That's how it was explained to me, and so for whatever reasons, it was exempt from being built in such a way that it tied in with the pre-existing middle school that is now attached to it. Also, there's a great deal of open land behind that school. If I were to do something of that, with that look, I would have accommodated some stronger integration and certainly use some of the lower area and not the top of the hill. Why? Because it has changed the scale of the entire area. Okay, and the buildings surrounding are low, they're small in scale, they're evocative of their time period. So it does stick out incredibly. It is not in sync, and apparently was exempt from that
It
type
is.
of review. That's, to me, that's a real example of what Commissioner Palacios is talking about. And perhaps eventually we can continue to work really hard and evolve to a point where we have some say over all the things that happen in the historic district, not just we individuals, but the commission, whoever is on the commission. Anyway,
Okay, so
let's start with this sign code.
I just want to make sure we give Martha direction on this contemporary Pueblo, that we're not interested in having it
It's not in
added.
there now. I mean, it could be something
Okay with
that we
that?
keep working
Not
on,
adding contemporary
Okay.
Pueblo.
because it's gonna keep coming up all
We
the
don't have
time.
it in there.
But-
No, but we're talking about.
And I've tried hard to figure out a way to incorporate it,
Well,
and
there's
it
two
just
reasons why.
keeps
Obviously, you keep the
looping.
space looking the way
Well,
it
I
is.
was gonna ask you, Amy,
Ends up looking like
were you able to
eventually,
contact
or
the,
you wanna let civilization
I didn't have a
move on,
chance to
Oh.
contact.
And.
then I'll go ahead and call them.
Okay.
What do you-
Just to we're trying to get mapping on
Right.
the buildings in Taos, the most contemporary or the most recent mapping of contributing and significant historic buildings, because I'm starting to think all buildings in the thing are historic, that nothing should be taken down without our looking at it, you know?
Right.
Well,
In the zone, because that's why it's that zone, why it's this zone.
So,
see, and I was concerned about that too, because we're putting together our budgets right now, and I basically have to have something ready for the commission by the 19th. They discussed this last night, and it's like, oh. So, do you think that there will be a cost to doing that survey? Do we need to have an independent consultant help us?
Yeah.
I had called for other business to SHPO, and I was given the name of a person that, apparently there was a grant for mapping the buildings in Taos for the state that was done within the last 5 or 6 years. And the contact lady is Barbara Zook. And I have her phone number if you want to write it down
I have it in the office.
also. But I mean, you know,
Yeah,
but you're
yeah,
also,
it's good.
but I can give it to you right here because I have the same page open that I gave to you. I mean, you guys together, I was just trying to follow up that I think that's kind of important. Any 476-0548. What?
Perfect. So what are your thoughts about, conceptually, do you want to not include contemporary Pueblo? We had this discussion as a commission before, whether eventually, 100 years from now, you want this place to look like Knott's Berry Farm when everything is exactly the same looking? Or did we want to allow, as society moves on, to allow more modern-looking buildings that show that this society in downtown Taos did evolve at some point? That's a big philosophical decision for this commission. We've talked about it.
Well,
And I would like to hear your input on that.
right.
I don't think we can tackle it at this time. I think right now, if we could just continue the thread of what's here and respect it, that's part of what we're doing. I think in terms of earth-shaking remake of what this place is going to look like, that's,
So do you want to say contemporary modern with,
Well,
after
we
they
have,
come to the commission, or not
here,
at all?
As part of the paperwork, Feather and Gill's discussion of contemporary Pueblo style. And what we did decide as a commission when this was last brought up, we gave it a no, okay? Now, the subject has come up again, and the question is, would we like to think about amending that and including it now in the code as allowable under certain circumstances, maybe perhaps for brand-new construction and so forth, not attached to a pre-existing older building. However, do we want to include it? And if we still want to just stick with what we have, well, then that's fine, but that's the question, I think. And do we want to review that position? Do we want to include it?
well, not in terms of her due dates of having to have something out by such and such a time. I mean, I think it's something that's going to keep being a challenge in its definition. And it would have helped us maybe when these apartments were brought up if we would have some teeth in there at that time. But that is what we're going to be, those apartments are a good example of what's going to just keep coming and coming. So we have so little to say about buildings. We can't say anything about school buildings or federal buildings or, I mean, all we're talking about is preserving the character of the town at this point.
Right.
And to talk about things that are exempt to those rules, it goes beyond, it goes
So
beyond.
Martha,
it may
We have a
not com-
definition of what our...
I would say no. I
Right.
would say no at this time.
Okay,
Okay.
so right
Well,
now,
thank you.
the thing that you found, that's the work that we did, move that forward, and we'll deal with contemporary Pueblo at another time, or we won't, okay? I have one other piece of information for you, Martha. When we talked about the murals in Silver City, I have a contact name and number for you. The name is Lee, L-E-E, Gruber, G-R-U-B, like boy, E-R, 575-590-0314. She's the co-chair of the Arts and Culture District in Silver City, and she's very nice. She's great, and she may not have put the mural thing together, but she'll know who did.
Okay.
Okay? Now, so we're all good with this? Can we move to matters number 7? Is there any
Yes,
matter from the
please,
commission? Except to say welcome again, Amy, and thank you, Martha. You're just like, I just think you're wonderful. I do. You're
Oh,
just so
thank you.
good to work with.
So
You
there is a matter for the Preservation Commission, and that is that we need to take a vote on officers.
But we're going to do that next month, not
Why?
this month, because it's not on the agenda.
The mayor,
Wait.
the mayor needs to
He
appoint.
needs to appoint another person
Oh, but
still.
we have a quorum.
Yeah, but you need the 5th person here. The mayor's going to appoint a 5th
Okay,
commissioner.
well,
I decided it was better not to put the election of officers on until.
oh, okay, well, I didn't, I'm just bringing it up. If you're telling me it's not gonna happen.
I thought it was better.
The mayor should appoint the 5th person, and then we do that, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Right. That's what I was told by the mayor.
Well,
So it's concurred.
well, that's fine. Yeah.
And you're going to be chair, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that
no,
right
I'm
now.
I'm trying to tell you.
Get
that
your stuff
I wanna
ready
just-
for this
I would just want
sucker.
to make it official that it's I want to make it,
Tap, tap.
hey, for my 2 cents, I want to make it official that it just stay the way it is. That it will not be a change, but.
Maybe he'll appoint Hillary Clinton as the 5th seat, and she'd be really good at running a meeting. All right, so is that the only matter you have from you as a commissioner?
At
for
this
right now?
time, ma'am, Madam
You're
Chair.
good?
Yeah,
Can I,
Yes.
how about a motion to adjourn?
I second that.
No, I can't make it. You do, you want
I
motion to
make the
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
I second it.
There we go.
Yay. It is really late,